Hello, hello, hello. Just testing the audio. That's gonna echo. Okay, can y'all hear me? And just type a yes in the chat if you can hear me.
Hey guys, I'll turn my camera on in a minute. We're just landing, so I'm running a little bit behind because of weather. So I'm sorry about that. Thank you so much.
It's good to hear from you, Brother Sellers. Hope you're doing well, man.
Yeah, I'm just you can as you see, we're just trying to land
Getting
in
to the gate.
Peterborough, and it's a bit of a mess. So
Yeah, no
uh,
problem.
I'll I'll be there shortly.
All right, no problem.
Would you like me to start from here, or would you like me to just wait until I get inside to the conference room? You're muting.
We'll give it a few more minutes, Sellers. Still waiting on Charlamagne.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll be in a conference room in the airport and probably be so much
All right.
better.
All right, cool. So participants should come in and now. I'll just give them a little wait. Thanks, man.
Yeah, to start without him, then I'm capable of doing that too.
Okay, you said when are you gonna be in the conference room? You said
probably 5 minutes.
5 minutes. All right. Yeah, we'll give it 5 minutes.
All right.
Thanks.
You're muted, Warren. You're on mute. Warren, you're on mute.
Yeah, there we go. Hey, man. Hey, Charlamagne. I'm good, thanks, man. Thanks for coming through. Bakari just landed. He's just going to a conference room at the airport, so we're just waiting on him to get there. A couple minutes.
Cool. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, man. How you been?
Blessed, black, and highly favored, brother.
always, man. You're at your home? Is your study?
Yeah, I'm home in the office. I was getting some work done.
Cool. All right, we got
the library closed.
8.
Oh, okay.
We got a decent amount of attendees here. So thank you everybody for who's in the room participating in this book talk with Bakari Sellers and Charlamagne the God. We're going to get started just in a few minutes, as Mr. Sellers, who is traveling, makes his way to the conference room at the airport. So just stick with us for a few minutes. We'll be right back.
Need to come there and do an event for my book, my new book when it come out.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, we'd love to have you, man, for sure.
Come out. It comes out next week, but I'm gonna be on doing stuff for it all summer. Really, the rest of the year, really. So.
It's on your imprint, on your yeah. Keep us posted, man. But we'd love to have you.
That's right. I'm ready. What's up, Charlamagne?
What's up, my guy? How are you?
Trying to be like you when I grow up, man. How's the fam?
Everybody's good. You look very well groomed. Well,
I just had to come up.
Got on the plane?
Yeah, I just landed in Teterboro. Weather was terrible. They sent us the scenic route around. I came at court in Georgia this morning.
Oh, okay. Let us know when to start, Warren.
All right, we're gonna get rolling. Just gonna get our Facebook feed going. We're good. Okay, we're up on Facebook. All right, so yeah, let's get this thing rolling. Didn't mean to block my camera. Thank you everybody for attending our virtual book talk with Bakari Sellers, hosted by Charlamagne the God. My name is Warren Watson. I'm the manager of the Weequahic branch in the Newark Public Library system. On behalf of Newark's 7 neighborhood libraries and the main library here at 5 Washington Street, I'd like to welcome you to this virtual book talk. We'll be fielding questions from Facebook and Zoom after the end of this 45 to 50-minute discussion. So if you have any questions, you can post them in the chat. I'll moderate it and post it to our panelists. First, Mr. Bakari Sellers is an attorney, political commentator, politician, and best-selling author. He served in the South Carolina House of Representatives for the 90th District from 2006 to 2014, becoming the youngest African-American person elected official in the country at age 22. He holds an African-American Studies degree from the Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, and a Juris Doctorate from the University of South Carolina School of Law. In May 2020, Mr. Sellers released an autobiography by Vantage Country that focuses on the erasure of Black identities and possessions in the American South and how his commitment to activism and Black empowerment was chiefly inherited from his parents, Gwendolyn and Cleveland Sellers. Bakari is a husband and father of 2 young twins. On April 23rd, 2024, Bakari released his second book, The Moment, Thoughts on the Race Reckoning That Wasn't and How We Can All Move Forward, which is the topic of today's conversation. In conversation, Mr. Sellers is the host of the nationally syndicated radio show, The Breakfast Club, Leonard McClevely, widely known as Charlamagne the God. Charlamagne is an entertainment mogul who is recognized as one of the most influential voices in media. He's an inductee of the Radio Hall of Fame and a podcast producer and author of the New York Times bestseller, Black Privilege, Opportunity Comes to Those Who Create It, and the best-selling Shook Ones, Anxiety Playing Tricks on Me. Is that right? Yep, Shook Ones right here. All right. His success as an author led to the partnership with Simon & Schuster Publishing, and is now home to, home to an imprint, Black Privilege Publishing. I'd also like to mention that May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and Charlamagne the God is an advocate in promoting mental health awareness. He founded the Mental Health Wealth Alliance, a foundation that works to destigmatize mental health conversations in the Black community. Additionally, he's an ambassador of the Food Bank of New York City. Charlamagne is a husband and father of 4. Just a couple of days ago, he's interviewed from the New York Times about his influence on presidential campaign, and encourage everyone to check out the New York Times article. And he's got a book coming out, Get Honest or Die Lying. So we hope to see Charlamagne in the near future to discuss that as well. But the conversation of today, hold up by our NPL copy, The Moment by Mr. Bakari Sellers. So I'll turn it over to Charlamagne and Bakari so they can discuss this impactful book.
Thank you, Warren, for such a great introduction. Salute to everybody watching us right now. You know, we have mad love for Newark. We love the Newark Public Library. And we are here to talk about Bakari's new book, The Moment. So I'm going to ask you the obvious question, Bakari. What inspired you to write The Moment? And how do you think it contributes to the conversation about the race reckoning in America?
Well, first of all, a great question. And I'm from the big city of Denmark, South Carolina, much like you're from the big city of Moncks Corner. Right. We had 3 stoplights and a blinking light, and my mom and dad would always tell me the 2 most important words in the English language are the words "thank you," and they're not nearly said enough. And so I want to first just say thank you to the Newark Public Library, all of those people who found it not robbery to join us today in this webinar via Zoom or Facebook or wherever you are watching this, even if you have to watch it at a later date. Just thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for this love and support for The Moment, which has done really well in this climate. You know, I wrote this book a lot for the same reason. I interviewed on my podcast Cicely Tyson 3 days before she passed away. I interviewed her on Monday. She died on Wednesday. And she wrote an autobiography, and she was like 93, 92, 93. And I said, "Miss Tyson, why did you wait until you were in your 90s to write your autobiography?" And she said, "Because I wanted to have something to say." And I felt like after George Floyd, I felt like after Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and also being in COVID, that I felt we were on the precipice of a third Reconstruction. And I guess that might have been my youthful naivete, but I just saw the world coming out in ways they hadn't before. And with that, I was of the belief that maybe things were changing and we missed that moment. And so hence the name, the race reckoning that wasn't. The reason that we call it The Moment is because globally we were in a moment. And I felt that moment passed us by. In fact, we didn't even make progress. I think most people would analyze that we've gone backwards since 2020. But it was a moment. I was on TV with Thelonious Floyd, who's George's brother. He came on after Ben Crump. I came on after Ben Crump and Thelonious. I was on with Dante Stallworth, and I broke down just thinking about what it was like to raise Black children in this country that did not love us. And it was hard to talk after hearing Thelonious break down as well. And so the book kicks off with that moment on CNN and kind of utilizes that to encapsulate what that time period was like. And we analyze where we've gone since then.
So what gives you optimism like now?
What gives me optimism is King once said that only when it's darkest can you see the stars. And I think that we're in the nadir. I think we're in one of the darkest points. I mean, I can't help but to see objectively the statistics of things like home ownership. Black home ownership is where it was in the 1960s. Mm-hmm. I look at access to capital, wealth, education, healthcare, all of those things. The progress that we've made, we've gone backwards. So objectively, we're in a really, really, we're not where we need to be, to say the least. We are fighting to preserve instead of fighting to progress. We're fighting to survive. Everybody we talk to is out here trying to survive. Everybody just trying to keep their head above water. Not many people have an opportunity to thrive. Not many people have an opportunity to, store away money for simple things like kids' college funds. And I actually have to check myself because I just called that a simple thing. But for some folk, that's not a simple thing. Saving those monies for your child's 527 or setting aside a savings account. I think we just saw the punter for the Kansas City Chiefs, Harrison Buckner, was in the news about his graduation speech recently, and he articulated his conservative views. But when I went back, the fascinating part about his graduation speech and the views he articulated was that He comes from generations of wealth. You know, his mother is a physicist at Emory. You know, her parents were wealthy and their parents were wealthy. And people forget that Black people didn't become full citizens in this country until the mid 1960s. And so we have a lot of work to do. And I find hope in my children. I find hope in this new generation. I think they're amazing. I think, though, I know you old, though, Charlamagne. You still considered a millennial, though, right?
I don't, man. I have no idea. I don't think I'm a letter. I know I ain't no letter.
You're not no letter. Either you would tell in, either you wanted I'm an old millennial, so either you would tell in the X, or you
I'm
were old.
78. I'm 1978.
We got to find somebody. Google that and tell us what that answer is. But I would argue that we're going to be the first generation of Black folk that leave. And I write this in the book. And when you write, man, you get to a point where you say something and you're like, I can't believe I just concluded that. But I concluded that we're going to be the first generation of Black folk in a long time to leave this country worse than what we inherited.
Damn. Man, when you you reference history a lot. When you think about the legacy of, civil rights figures like your father, the great Cleveland Sellers, and others like Ella Baker, how do they influence your perspective on current social issues? And can you even use what they went through for now?
Yeah, I think you have to. I think you have to utilize the lessons of the challenges were different, right? You had very tangible goals. You needed the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, the Fair Housing Act. Now it's not that simple in terms of the needs and the policy to meet those needs. But the way they organized, the role of the Black church, which is something I talked about, the way that they mobilized and met people where they were in places like Philadelphia, Mississippi. There's nobody walking this planet like a Ella Baker or a Fannie Lou Hamer. Now, I will tell you, somebody I did interview in the book, of course, was the Right Reverend Dr. William Barber, who is somebody who walks in those same shoes. Mm-hmm. And he had some ideas about how we unify people across these economic lines. And so I think there are so many lessons to be learned. And we just, and we're actually talking, most people don't even know this, but today is the 54th anniversary of the shooting at Jackson State. And so we had South Carolina State, we had Jackson State, and we had Kent State. And many people don't know about Jackson State or South Carolina State, but today is the 54th commemoration thereof. And when you think about that and you think about how far we've come, I think you realize we've made progress. We just have so far to go.
Man, when you think about, racial disparities in this country, what do you think exposed more racial disparities? I'm going to name three things. What do you think exposed racial disparities in this country more? President Barack Obama, President Donald Trump, or COVID-19?
Ooh, I'm going to go in order. 1A and 1B are Barack Obama and COVID. And like 7 is Donald Trump. Like he's way down. He's way down on the list. So I think we all know what happened after. And what happens in this country, it happened in the first Reconstruction. After the first Reconstruction, you had Jim Crow, right? When you have these things happen, you have this immediate, and I hate this word. We got to come up with a better word for it. But Van kind of encapsulated it one night on TV, the white lash. I mean, there's no really other way to describe it as such. Mm-hmm. It just sounds really cheesy to me. But I'm going to use it for lack of a better term. We always have these white lashes. And so Barack Obama's easy because you literally had people who had a meeting the night of his inauguration, the Karl Rove of the world, the Mitch McConnells of the world, like this clandestine meeting of people running the world. And their number one goal was to make him a one-term president. People who literally create policy, who were supposed to help us move forward, had their top priority for the country was to make Barack Obama a one-term president. You saw the creation of the Tea Party. You saw that racism be kind of fermented. You saw Fox News change. I mean, you remember they ran a whole story on his brown suit, mm-hmm. right? It's just, you saw Fox News and that echo chamber of conservative media, the Rush Limbaugh's change. And we begin to see racism and everything else become monetized. So that's first. COVID is more interesting to analyze for me. And I think COVID is actually probably more pronounced when it comes to the systemic inequities, because we had Black folk who died at higher rates and lost any type of economic gains they've made more than any other group of people during COVID. But we just got $1,800 checks and nobody asked the question why. And so I take Denmark, where I grew up. I grew up in a food desert, which means you don't go 1 or 2 miles and have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. We don't have clean water, and our hospital closed, like many poor rural hospitals throughout the South. And so when you live in a food desert, that means that you eat, processed meats. You get the pound of sugar, 10-pack of Kool-Aid for $1. You end up with high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, and you end up with the sugar, right? So you have these preventable illnesses. You're not drinking clean water. The water's dirty, so you're taking all these toxins in, et cetera, cancer-causing toxins, et cetera. And then you don't have a hospital, which is where, unfortunately, where we grow up is many people's primary care. Like, people don't go to the doctor. They go to the hospital when they get sick. And so you layer all of that with a pandemic. It's no wonder Black folk died at higher rates. But nobody's actually talked about those systemic inequities that underlie those results. We just missed it. But I don't think there's any greater example of those inequities than COVID. It's just really hard to analyze, and we didn't do it.
Is there a bounce back from that? Do you think like there's something that could be done systemically to repair the damage that COVID did?
I mean, I do give Joe Biden a great deal of credit for dragging us out of COVID. I mean, the problem is that it's kind of fleeting. Like, people are like, man, COVID was a long time ago. We forget COVID was just 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, because we've made such progress. I mean, the market today hit numbers it has never hit before. Also, when I say stuff like that, you have to realize that we still have a large number of Black folk that are unbanked, let alone in markets, right? And you still have issues that are residual, like inflation. I tell people all the time, my daddy's biggest issue was, I said this on your show, but my daddy's biggest issue was the price of whiting at Piggly Wiggly. He was pissed off about that. He just was. And that just shows you that hits people in their pocketbooks. And how do we bounce back from that? I mean, it's not going to be easy. And this is something that's going to take a decade for us to recoup. And we'll never get the lives back. One of the people I interviewed was Garland Gilchrist. Garland lost 20 plus people from COVID. Coaches, friends, cousins, family members. I mean, so many people died. And so it was very hard for us to make it through, because we had so many people. You had that illness coupled with Black folk having the highest incidence of preventable illnesses.
In the moment, you shared a story of Josephine, right?
Yeah.
She's a Gullah Geechee descendant, and she's been fighting to keep her family's land in South Carolina. Can you explain why that story resonated with you? And you represent her, right?
Yeah, I did. She passed, but we were successful in keeping the property in her family's name. Josephine Wright was every bit of 4'10", maybe. I might be giving her an inch or two. So it's funny, whenever we took pictures together at press conferences, either you got me in the picture or you got her in the picture, because I stand at 6'5". And so they would have to cut one of our heads off in the pictures. But she was one of the most amazing women that I'd ever met in my life. And the reason that I highlighted her is because, one, there was a development company out of Savannah that really wanted about 21, 22 feet of her property. They didn't want the whole house, but they were going to take the whole house just to get the 21, 22 feet they needed. That property had been in her family for 150 years and passed down. And there's an issue throughout the South, particularly with Gullah Geechee folk who have very valuable property along the coastline called heirs property, where due to tax situations, a state transfer of property, usually there's not an I dotted or a T crossed, and you don't get that benefit of the doubt when people are challenging you, and companies are able to come in and take your land. And so they attempted to do that with Josephine Wright, but she was fighting. And, at 92, 93 years old, they served her with a lawsuit. She would come home and have like dead animals around her house. And like, it was crazy. And they were trying to force her to leave. And it showed for me a couple of things. One is just the fortitude of Black folk in this country to be willing to fight. Second, the fact that you still at 90 years old gotta fight. And third, how, we're still fighting for access to land, which I go back to. My mom and dad let me do anything but sell land. And I can sell dope before they let me sell any land we got in our household. They just believe, and accurately so, that land is how you build wealth. That's the only way that you can fundamentally attain wealth. And our access to that is fleeting. And so Josephine was a hero, a heroine. May she rest in peace. She also highlighted something else, because I think Elon Musk has destroyed Twitter. But one of the redeeming virtues was I was able to find this article on Twitter through the Post and Courier. I put out a tweet that I was working on it, and we had people like Snoop contribute 10,000, Kyrie Irving contributed 10,000, And
Yeah.
Tyler Perry built her a whole new house. Shout out to my brother Tyler.
Wow. You know, when you talk to people like Miss Wright, you know, your book is The Race Reckoning That Wasn't. For people like Miss Wright, it feels like a race reckoning never was in her whole 90 years of existence. Or you look at what's happening to the sister in Tulsa right now. Her name slips my
Yeah, she
mind
just
right.
turned 110, right?
Yeah. For people like, you know, them, it's never been a race reckoning. So how do you have it? How do you talk to them?
Yeah, I don't talk to them. I do more listening than talking and hear those stories. But they will tell you one of the things that I get on my dad about all the time, because my dad in the book, one of the things when I was talking to him, it's a quote I put in the book that it stopped people in their tracks, but it was just a throwaway line for me. But he was like, we're back in 1954. And while he may be right objectively, I refuse to acknowledge that because, you know, my dad was shot, 28 others were shot, 3 were killed in the Orangeburg Massacre. I know the story of Jimmy Lee Jackson. I know the stories of Medgar Rivers and Emmett Till and all these people and all the individuals that we both know throughout the South. The funny part about growing up in the South is that you don't have to read about civil rights in a history book. Like people at the barbershop will tell you, remember when King came, April of, 63, and we marched and did this, and Stokely was there and we did this and that. And so you hear those stories, and I don't want people to believe that their sacrifices were in vain. And so I fundamentally push back on that notion that we haven't made that much progress.
Can you elaborate to the people, listening and watching this right now about your thoughts on the role of the Black church in activism and social justice? Because I don't know if this generation has that.
We don't, and it's missing, and it's glaring. And I overgeneralize the Black church because the first thing people always walk up to me and say is, well, my church does X, Y, and Z, right? without failure. But there was a time in this country when the Black church was the epicenter for change, public policy change, organizing, meeting. If you were hungry, you'd be fed. If you were cold, you'd be clothed. They would educate our children, particularly during the summer. And, it was not a Sunday morning place, right? It was a Monday through Saturday place. My brother, who went into ministry, and he deduced, and I agree, that somewhere along the line, the prosperity gospel swapped out this gospel of change. And I'm of the belief it don't have to be either or. It can be both and. But we have to bring the church back to a place where we're utilizing it to springboard change, because I think it's necessary. When we came to this country, we were stripped of absolutely everything except our faith. And that's all we had was our faith. And that's why we're some prayerful people. That's why, I always say that there is one line that Black folk, you just across the board, disrespect more than any other line in the world. And that line is, please hold your applause until all the names are called. At graduations, we do not listen. That you might as well not even say that line, because I don't think people understand that all of the grandmas and aunties and everybody that prayed so hard and were of faith to have that boy or girl walk across that stage. I mean, we still are in the generation of first generation college students, but I use that example to show how powerful faith is.
Throughout the book, you talk about, challenges that young Black legislators face, currently in our political climate. Can you expound on it?
Yeah, I talk about Justin and Justin a lot. Those boys give me a lot of hope in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
We got a lot of good people, man. I mean, a lot of good people.
That Tennessee or Texas?
Tennessee. What'd I say?
You said Texas, Tennessee.
Tennessee. I'm sorry, Tennessee. And I just looked last night. A buddy with the afro last night, Brandon in Maryland, Baltimore won again. Mm-hmm. Frank Scott and Chokwe Lumumba and Randall Woofin, Andre Dickens and Vi Lyles. I mean, and Karen Bass. You just have a lot of good leaders out there. Even before you get to Lauren Underwood in Congress and Ayanna Pressley and these type of folks. So we have a lot of good people out there. But I ran for office at a different time, man. I ran for office in 2006. So it was before any of those names that I named actually were in office or running for office, which is kind of cool when you think about it. But I didn't look up to Barack Obama. He was just somebody who gave a speech in 2004. We all looked up to Deval Patrick, the two-term, Black governor from Massachusetts. And it was different. You know, we didn't have like, you know, how many text messages do you get from candidates now? All the time. Just phone full. Nikki Haley texts me more than she's ever texted me before on these automated text messages. We didn't have that. We didn't have Instagram. We didn't have Snapchat. We didn't have TikTok. We had Facebook, a little bit of Facebook. But I knocked on doors and went to churches and had to meet people at the post office. And what happened with Barack Obama was people saw politics as a means to celebrity. And you're starting to see a lot of people run for office they run these Instagram campaigns, which I hate, and they run for office and they serve to be celebrities. And usually we have them on the left and right. I mean, you have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and people like Lauren Boebert, et cetera, who are just true celebrities, and they're not policy oriented. We need more good people on both sides.
Why do you think there's a need, especially now, you know, for unity within the Black community?
Because I think we're in dire straits. Everybody not going to be a part of the journey or the struggle. I mean, if you want to have 2 Teslas and live in a gated community and raise your kids 9 to 5, I mean, by all means, please do it. You know, I'm not going to knock you for not joining the movement, or not trying to lift as you climb. But I do think it's our responsibility. I think we have to remember all those who came before us. And I think I think that there can be unity between poor white folk and poor Black folk. That's what William Barber talks about all the time. I mean, I think that if you go to Appalachia in West Virginia and you talk to them about the fact that if you have a heart attack, then your family's going to go bankrupt, or your lack of access to care, or the fact that they're miseducating your children, your kids go to school with a leaky ceiling. I think that resonates the same way it resonates with folk in Jackson, Mississippi. Mm-hmm. But there are people who don't want us to have those discussions with one another. And that was the common, I mean, that was Bernie Sanders to a certain extent, you know, trying to tie those individuals in their struggles and plights together. And I think there's a lesson to be learned from Bernie and even AOC when she articulates it, and William Barber.
Well, when you talk about the moment and you think about we're currently in an election year, and you think about the moment right now, and you look at everything that's going on in the world, you look at everything that's going on right here in America, why do you think people don't understand this? Why don't they have more of a sense of urgency about the current moment that's happening right now?
Because they're worried about their day-to-day task. I think it's hard for people to focus on where we are in terms of where we are in this moment relative to the future and past, when, you know, you're one sickness in your family away from not being able to afford nothing. You're a $400, you know, and I take it for granted. I mean, I have to go to Denmark sometimes and let my homeboy Pop and everybody else humble me sometimes, because I got homeboys that are literally like a $400 tire away from just their month. They're trying to figure out how to pay a mortgage. They're not trying to figure out where we are in this moment in time and how we move forward. They're living for the day. They're living for that moment, to be completely honest, for a play on words. And I think we haven't done a good job listening, particularly to Black men. I don't think we've done a good job listening to these individuals who are going through these things. And then we haven't put forth policy proposals, and hopefully Akeem and others will do that, but put forth policy proposals which will really bring about change.
It's probably my last question, but we this book is great for everybody, but we understand that you aiming for your children to live in a world different from the one we know today. Can you explain what that vision looks like for everybody watching this right now, and how you believe we can actually achieve it?
Yeah. So I want my kids to be free. And I'm a big believer in words like freedom and justice and love. And one of the things that I know you do, and one of the things that I do, is I fill my house with love. My kids know. We hug them, we talk to them, we tell them I love you. We hold them really tight, because when they walk outside of our doors, we cannot control the people who may judge them because of the color of their skin, or who they love, or who they pray to, or what they look like that particular day. And so I want them to live in a world where they can be free to exist, where they can be, I don't want them to be chosen to be better than anybody else. But I do want them to have an opportunity to achieve the American dream. And there's so many people in this country that do not have an opportunity to, that are just as, if you go back to Monk's Corner, there are at least 35 people more talented than Charlamagne right now. At least. If I go back to Denmark, there's at least 35, 50 people more talented than me. But not everybody is fortuitous. Not everybody has those opportunities. And sometimes you got to be lucky to get out of what the great American poet Clifford Harris labeled the trap. You just have to be lucky to get out of that. And so I want us to live in a society where brown and black boys and girls have the same opportunity, and their lives are valued the same way that white mothers and fathers value the lives of their children as well.
That's right. That's Bakari Sellers, y'all. Make sure y'all go out there and get the moment if you haven't gotten it already. Warren, we doing some Q&A, or what we doing?
Yeah, we're gonna get some. Yeah, hang on. Trying to make sure I'm in the position to get the chat going.
Okay.
So, okay, we're looking for some questions from the audience. Get them on. Okay, so, get them on. As I get them on, I need help with the chat. Yeah, so somebody's asking, so if the racial reckoning never came with the George Floyd moment, what does a racial reckoning look like?
And that's a good question. It's kind of like porn. You know how the Supreme Court defined porn? You know it when you see it. And so it's one of those things that we felt like, you remember post George and Ahmaud and Breonna, how Black folk, white folk all around the country, all around the world were coming out in the streets saying things like Black Lives Matter, like we were embracing the value and answering those questions and having those tough conversations and having those commitments to racial equity. I just looked at the University of North Carolina just this week abolished all of their DEI initiatives, all of them, and utilized that money and put it into their campus public safety. Right. And so, you know, you may have a hard time identifying what the reckoning looks like, but you can definitely tell when you're going backwards.
You want me to, I got a couple of him.
You want to chime in, Charlamagne?
Yep. Charles Curtis said, would you talk some, Bakari, about how you see the intersection of civic engagement and freedom in current times where all our mainstream options are complicit in issues like Palestinian genocide?
Man, that's a big question. And so as we look at what's happening in Gaza right now, I think that it's fair for us to have a nuanced look at what's happening in Gaza and throughout the West Bank. I frame my reference because I tell people all the time, a lot of people having these discussions have never even sat with the Palestinian child. They've never even gone to the West Bank. They've never even gone to Israel. I've had the opportunity to do all of that. I've been in Israel 4 times. I've been to Gaza. I've spoken to the Palestinian Authority. I've gone to Gaza. I've been in Jerusalem. I've been and stood over and looked in Lebanon and seen the Hezbollah flags. And I can tell you that October 7th was one of the greatest and most violent days I've ever seen in my life, right? And in terms of what happened in Israel, in the southern parts of a kibbutz in Israel, kibbutzes in Israel. I actually was in one of the kibbutzes, which was terrorized. And I can also say that it's very difficult to negotiate with, a regime like Hamas that doesn't believe that you have the right to exist. I can say those things, and I can also say that one of the greatest impediments to peace we have in the Middle East is Bibi Netanyahu. I can also say that we do not need to have, there's no place for innocent Palestinian women and children to be bombed, hospitals to be bombed, food service workers to die. I can be very clear about that and say that we need to have a society where Palestinian children can grow up and live free from harm and danger, and where Jews in Israel have a right to their own state and have a right to survive without terror. And I think that having that approach, I'm not sure why that would piss off one side or another, but you have to be willing to be nuanced about this situation that's been going on since before many of us were born.
Thank you, Charles, for that question. Braylon Cathy says, Bakari, welcome, brother. You have seen and heard from many of the nation's leaders. If given the opportunity to address the power brokers, what would you impact upon them to help calm some of the overall divisiveness across the country?
First of all, great question. Both, I mean, these are really good questions. I don't put it on our leaders to address that overall divisiveness. I think that we are in a very weird predicament in our politics nationally, and you see it trickle down into local school boards or city councils, et cetera. I think that one of the reasons, there are two reasons that we're in this place of divisiveness. One, and I'm a part of it, is the 24-hour news cycle. I love Ted Turner, but when Ted Turner created the 24-hour news cycle, somebody somewhere realized you got to fill it with something. And so the best way to keep this echo chamber churning is to fill it with fear and hate and propaganda. I mean, I used to get the snippets of what Tucker would be saying at night or Sean Hannity would say at night. And it's just maddening, the type of things that fill that void. So that's one, the 24-hour cable news cycle. And number two is social media. I mean, the vitriol that's on it. You're not on Twitter anymore, are you, Charlamagne?
I haven't been on there in 6 years.
I mean, I need to get. I said after I have a children's book coming out in spring or something, and I said after that book, I'm good on that. I'm good on. I mean, between the porn and the racism on Twitter, I mean, it's just a totally different place. But those two entities are the reason that I believe we have the level of divisiveness, because you can tell some people ain't never been beat up, first. Mm-hmm. And second, people say whatever they want to say with the fact that we have, although we're so connected via social media, we're still disconnected because they feel like they'll never see you. And so this level of hate and vitriol and divisiveness is crazy. I mean, I act like I'm old. I'm only 39, but like we grew up in a time where, like Tim Scott, for example, like I don't really recognize the Tim Scott right now. I'll be honest with you. I know Tim, and I come from the perspective that, like, if Tim needed a kidney, I'd give him a kidney tomorrow. I'd never vote for him, though. And that used to be where American politics was. It wasn't in a place where we would, be trying to jump on people or call them all types of names. And we've just gotten to a point where you can't even have discussions. And what that means is that individuals that need to work together choose not to fix problems like immigration.
An anonymous attendee says, can you see another grassroots style campaign like Barack Obama's rearing up to counter the current divide in our politics?
So can I see a grassroots campaign rearing up to unify and kind of heal the divisiveness? Yeah, sure.
Would you call Obama grassroots? I wouldn't call Obama.
Oh yeah, he was all grassroots. Because you got to remember, the person who was the grass tops was Hillary Clinton. Like, Hillary went in and had all the pastors. She had all the, all the elected officials, because all those people love Bill. She had all those folks. I mean, we were running uphill when we ran that race. But I don't think there'd be anybody else like Barack Obama is what I was going to say. Like, Barack in 2008 was special. I mean, Barack in 2012 couldn't even be Barack from 2008. That was a special, special person.
Once in a generational lifetime, once in a generational talent. That's like Michael Jordan, LeBron James. Like, you don't.
Yeah, I mean, we got spoiled. I mean, we had three really good ones over a period of 60 years. I mean, JFK was really good. Mm-hmm. His brother was decent, but he died too soon. Bill Clinton was amazing in terms of, we're just talking about pure talent now. Mm-hmm. And then Barack Obama was that person. It's going to be hard. Now, in this next, I mean, the person who I love Kamala. I think Kamala is that we can have that debate whenever, but I love Kamala. I think the most talented of them all, though, is Mayor Pete. Mayor Pete's just a talented dude. I just don't think the country's ready to elect a gay man with the first husband. I see the divisiveness. I can only imagine what that would be. I can only imagine how ugly that campaign would be for him and his family.
No, I agree with you. I think Mayor Pete is fantastic, and I agree that the country's not ready for, a gay man with a first husband. I agree, which is strange, because you thought Barack Obama actually did break that glass ceiling, but I guess not, huh?
I mean, you know, the most qualified person to ever run for president of the United States got beat by Donald Trump.
Yeah,
I mean, so let's just call it what it is.
that's true. I
All
think that's it, Warren.
Well, I got a couple. I'm gonna field a couple questions from the Facebook.
Okay.
One says you explore some of the inequities in the health system that happened during COVID. How do you, as this is coming from a public health professional, how would you suggest that we advocate for universal health care? Is that a solution to the racial inequities? And what is the best practices? And if so, what are the best practices for advocating for universal health care at the state level?
Yeah, no, I think advocating for universal health care is a noble cause. I think there are things you can do along the way to fill those stop gaps. For example, pushing for your state to expand Medicaid is probably the first thing you should do. And that expansion of Medicaid will allow, and some states already have it, some states don't, but it would allow those individuals who we call, of course, the working poor to be able to have access to the Medicaid benefits that are necessary. And so that would be my first step. Universal health care is where we need to be. Obamacare, Affordable Care Act, whatever you want to call it, was a huge step in that direction. And shout out to John McCain and John Roberts, people I never thought I'd be giving a shout out to, but here we are with a great question, who helped preserve Obamacare as we know it today. I think we have to focus on, if Donald Trump is president of the United States again, they're going to make it a 4-year focus to try to repeal the progress that was made along the lines of universal health care. I also think we have a problem with rural access to care. So in your particular states, many of the rural states don't have access to quality care, or even, you know, I would go as far as to say in South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, there have been studies about the lack of an OBGYN for individuals within 100 miles. I mean, can you imagine not having an OBGYN within 50 to 100 miles? So just my focus, while I think universal healthcare is the end goal, is my goal, the stopgap that I want a lot of people to focus on right now is access to care. Access and affordability. How do we drive down those costs, of course, but also how do we make sure they have access?
Thank you for that. There's more comments on Facebook, but I'm going to try to field it as a question. You spoke earlier about the growing divisiveness, class divisiveness. You said that Black people might be end up leaving this country with less than they came here
I
with.
said our generation.
Our generation.
Yeah.
You're right. Our generation. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think the progress that we've made in generations prior to it has been great. I mean, I think that every ounce of change we've ever had in this country has been because of Black blood that flowed through the streets. You don't get the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act without the Edmund Pettus Bridge and visualizing Black folk being bludgeoned and dogs and water hoses. You don't get the Fair Housing Act without, you know, assassination of King. In South Carolina, we don't even take down the Confederate flag without 9 people dying in a church. And so the cost is really high. And what I'm saying is right now where we are, if you analyze where we are objectively, statistically, from an economic, educational perspective, we are actually regressing and those numbers are going backwards. And so it's just a kind of for me, it's a sobering realization.
You muted, Warren.
Sorry, one of my colleagues just texted me a question. Do you think we will have another MLK or Malcolm X in this generation?
No, and I wish we would just let them rest in peace. They gave so much. Let them rest. You know, we have a Bakari Sellers and a Charlamagne. I mean, we got some good people. We got a Raz Baraka, right? Let them people be themselves. We got an Akeem Jeffries. You know, there's a certain element to allowing them the space to grow and mature and succeed.
So I have a question. Personally, I want to know what was the biggest difference that you had in your life personally from writing your first book to your second book, and how did that inform your writing process? Like, was there anything differently that you had to manage as a person or as an author? Like, what was the biggest change you thought between book one and book two?
The discipline was still the same. I mean, I still tried to spend 15 minutes a day working on this book. Sometimes that 15 minutes meant nothing came out. Sometimes that 15 minutes turned into an hour, but I wanted to spend 15 minutes a day trying to work on this project. So that was the same. The problem I had was that there became a point in the book where I just ran out of stuff to say. And then I was like, man, I can't have no 5-chapter book. So, you had to spend some time with yourself and your thoughts and and that's when we went back and were like, well, Bakari, you're doing a great job of analyzing the problems. Like, let's put some prescriptions in it. Let's try to figure out how we navigate out of these doldrums. And so that's what we did. And so, and then the heavy lift that is required whenever you put out a book. Charlamagne for the next 2 weeks ain't gonna be able to be reached by nobody because of the media that he's on and the book stops that he's on, and trying to make sure that you get it out there. It's very hard for Black authors, and particularly that aren't in the conservative kind of mainstream, because we kind of have to do a lot of that lift and work ourselves.
Wow. And that's basically what you're doing right now. You're doing that heavy lifting, doing the tour. And I think that's about it. I think we have one more question. Well, one has, okay, we're going to make this our last question, coming from the Zoom. And it's a gender-based question. And it's, who has a brighter future in your view, young Black men or young Black women?
Both. I don't think it's a either or. I think we have to pay close attention to our young people. And the reason being is I was just looking at statistics of young Black girls that have gone missing. Have y'all ever just looked at that? Like, it'll blow your mind. Like, we don't ever pay attention to it, but like missing, exploited, and trafficked. One of the demographic with some of the highest numbers of missing, exploited, and trafficked young people, of course, are Hispanic and Black. Mm-hmm. A white girl go missing, not National Guard come out. A Black girl go missing, we hope she comes back. She might have, whatever. So we really have to love them and hug them and create a safe and secure communities for them. And I think the same thing with young Black men. It's just, people are like, why did such and such join a gang? I was like, because he wanted a family, because he wanted to be loved. I mean, he had a brotherhood, and he's not getting that anywhere else. And so I know that sounds kind of cheesy, but I do think we have to begin to stand in the gap. And a lot of our brothers and sisters, I mean, this may just be for me, Charlamagne and Warren, but there are a lot of young men who don't grow up with, Black men in their lives. I mean, I had Mr. Robinson in 4th grade and Coach Martin, who taught PE. That's what the only two Black teachers I had two Black male teachers I had K-8 at all. And some people don't even have that. And so, in the church in the South, we say you got to stand in the gap. And so a lot of us have to do a better job of standing in the gap, which is hard because we got to raise our own kids and our own family. But we have to stand in the gap for those young men and women who don't have.
That's right.
Thanks for that response. And because I wasn't going to ask it, but more than one person presented it, I'm actually going to ask both Charlamagne and Bakari to weigh in on this one. Kendrick or Drake?
You better ask the expert. I'm just a layman.
It's always been Kendrick for me. I mean, I've always said Kendrick is the leader of the new school for this whole generation. I don't think people appreciate Kendrick the way that they should, because he's not like a lot of these other young artists who, are putting out an album every week, or, giving you a feature on somebody's record every week. Like, he's very, selective and strategic with how he distributes his art. And he's like the last of a dying breed. He's the guy that'll wait 4 to 5 years before he gives you an album. But that's also why people can debate whether or not he has 4 classics. So it's always been Kendrick for me. And I think as far as this battle, it wasn't even close.
The battle was not close. The battle was abuse. Although I will say this, Family Matters may have been the best, until Not Like Us. Not Like Us is the best song. Family Members still was a very good song. It just, he got consumed. It got stepped on and consumed. I will tell you this. I think the greatest rapper of all time is Andre 3000. And that's my GOAT. And so I compare a lot of people to him. I've always put Kendrick in that category. Never put Drake in that category, but thought Drake was a great musician. Still do think he's a great musician. But I will also say that people will have a hard time because of the way that this battle shook out. But I don't think you can sleep on J. Cole. Jermaine Cole is an amazing artist, an amazing rapper who just found peace and didn't want to be a part of this, what we saw.
That's right.
Yeah, thanks for the responses from both of you.
We all need to have some Jermaine Cole in our
From
life.
Jermaine Cole.
We'll be making decisions.
Well, you appreciate that response. Charlamagne, Brother Sellers, we appreciate your time. I think we're going to wrap
Thank
it
you
up
for having
here.
us, Warren. Thank you to everybody at the Newark Public Library. Thank you.
Thank you.
Grab
Pick up the book. Pick up.
grab
You got your book, Charlamagne. What your book? You got a cover in your office with you?
It's on another part of the house. I'm not
All right.
So remind everybody, we got copies of The Moment in the New York Public Library. Go to one of your 7 neighborhood branches or here at Maine. They're also going to support Black bookstores, Source of Knowledge Bookstore on 867 Broad Street. They also got copies for sale. Brothers, thank you for this great and enriching conversation. Charlamagne, we hope to see you in the near future when you're promoting your new book. Bakari, best of luck promoting The Moment, man. Stay safe on the road.
Thank you,
Warren,
man.
Bakari, peace. Peace.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, fellas, thanks. And thanks to all our guests.